All right. So this is my first edition. This is Tait Fletcher, and you're listening to Pirate Life podcast, and it's the first after we changed the name from Stay Bulletproof. But I'm here with a Canadian friend, Jodi Mitic. I also want to say right to our sponsors, to TD's Show Club in Albuquerque, off I-25. They got great. It's probably the best. If you're into strip bars, it's one of the best to go. The best is, of course, the Rhino, if you're going to talk about that. But, like, in Albuquerque, TD's is the place to be. And they got a few different locations there. TD's Show Club. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on Twitter. Find them on the web. And appreciate their sponsorship. And we'll have featured girls on this website that are going to be dancing there pretty regularly, I believe, from now on. And then also,
this is a strip club?
Yes, it's a strip
club. That's your sponsor? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then also cavemancoffeeco.com.
Which I am enjoying right now.
Yeah, we're just drinking it right now.
I'm Jodi Mitic, by the way.
This is Jodi Mitic. He just came all the way from Canada to be on this podcast, and maybe for some other things too in L.A. But I just got back in from New York. We just went and opened up Caveman and Brick CrossFit in Chelsea. And JP had asked us to go down there and pop it off, and so that's our first retail outlet in New York. You can find Caveman Coffee there. You can find us on Twitter at Caveman Coffee Co. and on Instagram at Caveman Coffee Co. and on the web at www.cavemancoffeeco.com. I believe we're just under cavemancoffee.com too. That just went through. But at any rate, here I am with Jodi Mitic.
Yeah, and the lovely historic Roosevelt Hotel.
Yeah.
Right across from Mann's Chinese Theater.
Whoever's putting them up has done it right over here.
I'm here with Vice.
Okay, so a little bit, why are you in the States and all that kind of stuff?
Well, Tait, we should probably start from the beginning. I was a sniper with the Canadian Armed Forces. And I was on patrol with my guys in Afghanistan in 2007, and I stepped on an anti-personnel landmine and lost.
How many guys?
Well, we were teams of 3, but that night I had 4.
Yep.
And so I stepped on an anti-personnel landmine, lost both my feet. Here, I'll show you. See what I got.
Crazy.
These are carbon fiber feet.
And they go up to where? To your knee?
So, no, it's like mid-calf on both sides. So my right foot detonated it, so it's a little higher. And then my left foot got, like, shredded, so they had to cut it off as well.
Because there are no ligaments or arteries to be attached to?
On the ground, like the medic... My boys wrapped it up, and the medics showed up, and then the foot was there, and they'd wrapped it all good.
Right.
They were pretty sure it'd be okay.
Right.
And so as they're putting me in the ambulance, are we good?
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
So as they're putting me in the ambulance, they're like, yeah, your left foot should be fine. I'm like, okay, guys, thanks. And so we get there at the hospital. They put me under for surgery, and when I come out, the doctor's like, my eyes open, and like the doctor's like right there, like where you are, and he's like, sorry, man, I'd take both your other foot, and he like didn't sugarcoat it, and I could tell he was pissed that he had to do it.
Yep.
And even though I was in like a drug-induced stupor, I just kind of blinked, and I was like, they said they thought it'd be okay. He's like, nope, I had to take it.
What crazy fucking conversations that guy has to have with people.
Well, this is the thing. Part of my brain was like, argue with him.
Right.
But the other part's like, what's he going to do? Like, get it out of the trash and sew it back on? Like, he knows what he's doing. He deals with battlefield trauma. And I'll go back a little bit some more.
How long had you been in the service at that point?
2007. I joined in 94. So that's 13 years.
Yeah. And this was going to be your career?
Well, I joined at 17.
Right.
And I joined in Canada. We don't have the National Guard.
You're going to just run it out to retirement.
Well, once I made sniper, only 3 out of 25 of us passed in Canada and the U.S. as well. But in Canada, especially, sniping is very like elite stuff, and we take it very seriously. So when I got to that level, I would have soldiered for free. I love soldiers, and I love soldiering, and I love everything about it. But once I was there, when I joined, it was for life. I was going to go to 25-ish. I mean, it's hard on the body, combat.
High level. It'd be like being a doctor and going, I think I'll go into accounting now. You're a high level professional.
Yeah, my next step was going to be our version of the Navy SEALs.
Right.
Right. So
what's that called?
ours is called JTF
Uh-huh.
because we're a really small military. They take guys from, like, you could be a truck driver,
Right.
but if you're fit and motivated, you go try out. If you're physically fit and mentally tough enough, they'll take you and turn you into a door kicker anyway.
Crazy.
And so that's why it's called joint. So it's joint forces. The whole
Yep.
forces can join. So that was my plan. I could have joined earlier, but a lot of my friends were there. But part of me, when I joined in 94, only like senior, like guys with 10 years in, and
Right.
30, 32 is the average age. So I thought that's the guys that join. And then later on, as Afghanistan ramped up for our military, they were changing it and stuff. Especially after 9/11, they were taking younger guys and less experienced guys. But in my mind and heart, it was like you go there after you reach a certain level of experience in the regular army.
Right.
So I was a sniper in the regular army, but in my mind, I was like, I can't go be a special forces guy, like full on, like, you know, I special ops as a sniper. But if I can't be a special forces guy, if I'm not ever been in a gunfight, right? So that's why I was like on a clear path that I thought was going to lead me to being about 40, because I could have retired at 44 if I wanted, and then like done like private sector stuff, like trained snipers and civilian, trained police and stuff.
Yep.
But anyway, all that ended the day I stepped on the landmine.
Really?
Well, yeah, I mean, soldiering's done on your feet, no matter what. I tried to hang on. I ran like...
I mean, these look like pretty goddamn capable feet.
Well, these are brand new.
Right. So
right
has
after,
technology increased that much since you lost your feet? Like
they have. Like, and also it takes time too, because that, like, when I lost my feet, you know, I was 30, I was in wicked shape and all that, but your body is used to having feet, right?
Yeah.
So I remember my therapist after like 4 months, she's like, try and go for a jog around the building, and with just these regular walking feet. And I went out and I tried to, and I couldn't do it. And I went back and I'm like, stupid, nobody's going to run in these things, right? Within a year of that, I was like jogging.
Yeah.
But even on the feet at that time, it wasn't as good as it is on these.
It's like they call it like your proprioceptors or something like that, to where there's the mind-muscle connection with
well, there's that, but also all the muscles I lost had to move up my body. So everything my calf did, my thighs and my ass do now, and up the body. So my core is it's not like my fitness isn't that great right now, but my strength is a lot more than the average able-bodied person.
Yep.
But that's just a side effect of using prosthetics. Because I put, like, if you use 100% effort to take a step, I use like 120 per foot, or maybe 150.
Right.
And guys, the higher it goes, the harder it gets.
And you've got to be more conscious of every step too, or do your feet go? You know, like when I move reflexively. I go and I step. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Do your feet catch you in the same way like that, or are you more conscious of each step that you're taking?
Yeah. Well, you learn. It's like any piece of equipment. You learn to use it, and I'm 7 years in.
Dude, that's what. I just met this guy. His name was Larry Lucero, I believe was his name. I met him in Santa Fe. He was like 75 years old, and right away I went to shake his hand, and he's got a hook, right?
Oh.
Halfway down his form, and we went lefty, you know.
Yeah.
And right away I went, so what happened? And he got it caught in a dryer when he was a little boy, wondering where the sock went. Got it caught in there, and it fucking ground his arm. It sounded awful.
Sounds like when dryers are brand new.
Right. And he goes. I go, and so that's your shit now. He says, and it was just like a pincher.
Yeah.
And I go, haven't they developed anything more than that? And he's like, oh yeah, they've got full articulated hands. He says, but I've had this for my whole life, Tate. And he says, I know how to use, and so like what you're saying, like that, being accustomed.
Yeah,
to,
like I didn't know. It took so I got hurt January 11th. That's this tattoo right here.
Yeah.
That's the date. And then these are my daughter's birthdays here. But
beautiful.
By mid-March, I was getting my legs for the first time, and I didn't know. So but it's not like they put them on and it's like, oh yeah, I got feet again.
Right.
You know, it's like standing on stilts for the first time. So you're in parallel bars.
Frustrating as fuck.
I cried like a little baby. You know, my mom was there and stuff. But I took my first steps, and then I went and pissed standing up. It's the highlight of the day.
Yeah.
But you know, it as a soldier, especially a career soldier in the combat arms, it's a position you should expect to find yourself in, right?
Without feet?
Without feet, without arms, dead.
Yeah.
Like, I know guys that...
Did you ever think that? Did you ever think that dead is more palatable?
Dead is more palatable than
like
being wounded?
Fuck, I'll never walk. Like, all the stuff that goes through your mind when you have an injury like that.
With my injuries, no, I never thought that.
Yeah.
I know a guy who lost both legs to mid-thigh and an arm. I've never asked him, but I mean...
Oh.
Like, take all my leg. I know guys that have lost legs up to, like, their crotch, but they still have their hands. I couldn't imagine losing a hand, right? But I'm not in that position.
Yeah.
For me, I knew our technology and our medicine was pretty good. Battlefield medicine is awesome. Like, if you get wounded now, the chances of you dying are pretty slim unless it's an instant death.
Right. Because even the guys with you are experts at keeping you alive, right? Like, you got a unit like that.
Well, no, as a sniper, we don't have medics with us.
No?
I actually laid on the ground bleeding for like an hour.
Wow.
My guys were there doing first aid, but the closest medic was like 1,200 meters away by foot in the dark through an Afghan village. So it took them like an hour and some time. And Canadian Army guys, we're not allowed to carry our own morphine. So I had to lay there and grit my teeth until we could even get any morphine to me. And it's actually a crazy story because, like, I call her my wife. We're not married. We live in sin, but whatever. We have two daughters, and she was the commander of the armored ambulance that actually came to rescue me. Oh yeah.
Had you known her before that or no?
Barely. Like
You looked at her and that girl is hot.
Well, she was the only. Well, she was the only girl in the battle space at the time, and we were like co-located with the platoon she was attached to. So we show up, and snipers are like. In the Canadian Forces, anyway, I can't speak for anyone else, but we're kind of like nomads.
Right.
We like roam the battlefield wherever we're needed.
Yep.
But the drawback of that is that when we show up to a unit, they're happy we're there. They're like, "Oh, sweet, the snipers are here." But yeah, we're like, "So where do we put our stuff?" And they're like, "Oh,
find a tree."
Yeah, all the good spots are taken.
Right.
So we show up with this platoon, and Alana, that's my wife, her like ambulance is there, so she's located. And because they're medics, they get extra space where they bunk.
Yep.
So she's like, well, there's only 3 of you. I have room. There's only 3 of there's me and my 2 guys in a place, and we got this, like, they had an old donkey stall or something, so it's big. And so we go in there, and we're hanging out because we got to wait for dark to go do our mission. So she gets out a DVD. Remember portable DVD players?
Yeah.
So she gets out one of those, and she's got, like, every Family Guy to that point.
Awesome.
So we're just sitting there, and she, at the time, was married to a guy that used to be in our unit.
Is she your age also?
She's actually 2 years older.
Yeah.
So, but we're watching Family Guy and chatting and just kind of like, there's a mutual thing. But it's a war zone, man. Like, and it's just like you and I could never know each other, get thrown together in the middle of a gunfight, and by the end of it, we're brothers.
Yep.
So same thing, same thing with the women. Canada's had women in combat since the 90s. So it's not an unusual position for me to be near a woman in those situations. Yeah. But, you still notice the ones that you like, right?
Sure, of course.
So when I got blown up, what they had to do was because in Afghanistan, the villages are built for people, not vehicles. Never mind giant combat vehicles.
Right.
So we have these things called a Badger, and it's an old tank chassis with a giant bulldozer blade on it. And so they were like, they couldn't land a helicopter near us, so they landed it in a safe zone where there was another strong point. And the guy with this Badger, he says, "Where's Jodi?" And they go, he's at grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the map. Right. He gets up on top of the tank with his compass, and he points it at where we are. And he says, "Driver, drive." And they drove through, like, everything, walls, buildings, like, they basically plowed a road. So then Alana's ambulance was right behind the bulldozer, and that's how they got me out. Took like 2 hours, but they did it.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. I almost bled out, according to the medic, though. But
I would imagine.
But I lived, right? I'm here talking to you, so.
Crazy, though.
So anyway.
Yeah.
It took me a while, but once I realized I had to run a half marathon on stick legs, and my daughter turned 1, my first daughter that Alana and I had, before I went, you know what? Soldiering's done. And I do talks and stuff now, right? So I do like motivational talks and stuff, and I show a picture of me taken pretty much right before I got blown up, and I got a beard pretty much like yours. I'm wearing a ball cap. I'm covered in my gear, and I'm like, see that badass motherfucker there? You see that guy? That guy's dead. And that's how I had to tell myself, like, that Jodi's dead. I'm 7, right? I'm going to be 7 in January because that's the anniversary of me getting blown up. I'm like, that guy, as awesome as he is, doesn't exist. Now I had to figure out who the new Jodi is. And the new Jodi likes being on TV. He likes being on radio. He likes meeting guys like you.
Yeah.
You know, listening to the Rogan podcast and just trying to become a more spiritual and educated. And I wasn't a bad guy before or anything, but, you know, it's a hard job, so you got to be hard.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would walk dogs for the Humane Society and give money to, you know, I'd be the guy to stop out of the group and give a homeless guy $1, but I was very much about the job, right? But now, you know, my vision is a lot broader.
Yeah.
And especially having 2 little girls that I got to raise now, you know. I'm down here with Vice, working on, we just did a piece at the University of Southern California where...
Today you did?
Today. So we met a guy named Skip Rizzo, and he figured out a way to use virtual reality to treat PTSD. So, like...
He's got success with it?
It's like an 80%. Like 16 out of 20 people in a trial were PTSD free.
Does Canada care more about that than the U.S.?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I know in Canada we've been trying to address it since the 90s, but it's still the biggest problem, I think, is that the culture is tough guy culture.
Yeah,
and
that's what all my friends say, man. They're like, even if I came back, one of my friends, Tommy Truex, he was a leader of, he was a leader of men, and like he had 100 guys under him in Egypt recently, and he says, but if I come back and I say something shook me or this or that, I'm instantly labeled and red flagged. He says, I cannot seek help and keep my job. He's like, there's no way that those two can exist, and so you have to just be, you have to push it away.
Because part of the problem is PTSD is looked at as like cancer or AIDS. Once
like
you
it's
got
forever and it's never done.
Yeah. So in Canada, what they did was they did something really smart. They realized that PTSD was seen as like a death thing, right? So they made up a term called OSI, operational stress injury. And it's the idea is like you're not OSIs lead to PTSD if left untreated. It'd be like if you broke your leg
Gotcha.
and didn't get treatment, you'd end up with a crooked, shitty leg.
Yep.
So this way, hey, if you got an OSI, it's like a sprained ankle. You go to the doctor, you get some therapy, you do your exercises, and in a couple months, you should be good.
So good, man.
But the idea is still trickling into the ranks,
Right.
too, right? So guys, but the environment is a lot better for guys to come forward, and so they will, and they'll get treatment. And what I tell guys, especially because like the guys will come to me and ask me for advice, and I say, well, if your truck is broken, you don't say, suck it up, truck.
Right.
Fucking
Right.
just fix yourself. Jesus Christ, have a drink and
Yep.
go to the gym and you'll be better. You say, fuck truck, take the truck to the mechanic and the mechanic fixes it.
Yep.
So consider yourself a truck
Yeah.
and go to the mechanic and get fucking fixed.
So like a lot of my friends, they go, they're like, you can't fix a broken computer with the same broken computer. You know what I mean? You don't fix a broken
And
hammer
that's
with
it.
that broken hammer. You
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
you gotta get help, man.
And so it's starting, and the new generation of soldier especially is really starting to embrace the whole take care of yourself, because it used to be mission before man, right? And it's still that to a point though, but my thing, even as a sniper, like we're very, and everyone has this romantic view of it, but being a sniper, I tell people, means you're colder, hungrier, tireder, carrying more shit with more responsibility than pretty much anybody else, and you get paid the same, right? But I forget what I was about to say. I just got distracted by
about
something over there.
OSI and about the changing the how it allowed guys to come
Oh,
forward
right.
more.
Sorry. So mission before man, I said, well, I am the man and I am the mission. Especially in snipers, there's only two of us.
Because you're alone, yeah.
There's 2 or 3 of us. So if one of us goes down, that's a third of the team down, and I can't finish the mission. So my thing is, like, take care of yourself so you can finish the mission, right? Don't walk
Without
through the
you,
swamp.
there's no mission.
Well, because guys back in the day, like, because Canada, we haven't fought a lot since Korea before Afghanistan. We did a little bit in the Balkans and stuff, but it was by
America,
accident.
we try to keep enough wars going to keep you guys busy.
Well, we do our best to stay out of it, our governments, right? But what guys used to, because there was no enemy to fight, they would find an enemy within. So it would be like if they were out on exercise, it'd be like, they could go around a swamp, or they'd go through it just to show how tough they are.
Right.
And then you freeze your ass off on the other end of the swamp because you're wet and it's cold.
Right.
And my thing was like, that's stupid. Like, if you're cold, you're less effective.
Right.
You can't think
Maybe
straight.
you miss a shot.
So it's, yeah, well, even before I was a sniper, I thought this way. I was like, why would we go through a swamp? And anyway, so the attitude has changed now where people are, they realize the better you are feeling and all that, the better the mission will go, right? So it's changing, but it's still like, police have the same issues, paramedics, firefighters.
Well, I always thought that about cops, too. Like, around here in L.A., I was like, man, to keep a guy under that kind of a stress load for fucking decades is crazy. It's almost like they need to do, like, a police exchange with Kansas or somewhere that is mellow. I
don't know. Like, I mean, imagine your responsibility is taking care of the safety of every... Because most police forces, I believe, it's like 2,000 citizens for one cop, roughly. Wow. I think. I don't know. I'm guessing. I can't remember, but it's a high... I know when I read the percentages of citizens versus police, I was surprised at the numbers. And that's your job, and you deal with the shittiest people 90% of the time. Yep. My buddy, actually, the guy who saved my life, one of the my sniper partner that was the first guy on me, he just became OPP. Ontario Provincial Police in Canada.
Means something different here.
Yeah, I know. And he was saying, like, everything he did in Afghanistan aside, on a weekly basis, he's seeing, like, dead bodies and neglected children and all this. And he's like, he's going to need more counseling just from that job than from being he ever needed to be in the military.
Like, that's what I talked to a friend of mine, and she's a cop, she's a detective now. But she's like, the worst case I ever went up to is a neglect thing, and their big screen TV falls on their infant, and crushes her, and she's like, you peel that. She's like, it's just, and I was like, I got enough scars on my fucking head. I don't need to have more shit inside my brain. Of things I got to get over. Like, I couldn't imagine being a first responder and seeing that, and seeing children ripped apart in a car accident,
like when they get
whatever it is.
They only get called when somebody's hurt.
Yep.
Like,
and
not like
they're only there to clean it up.
Yeah.
It's not proactive. It's like, I'm here to clean up the mess.
Yeah, it's not like they show up because a kid might fall.
Yeah.
So when they show up, it's because, the worst story I got from a cop was he showed up in a crackhead, the baby was dead.
Yep.
And then there was, like, holes in the wall. And because the kid wasn't stopping crying, so he picked it up by the leg. And he said he had to leave. He had to run away because he was going to shoot the guy.
He's going to kill him.
And that's what they deal with all the time. And just thinking about that gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, I got
the cops that I know that are out there are like amazing guys too. Like, that I'm
most
so
of them,
glad can do the job. That they have the mental outlook to do it.
The fact that they hold it together as well as they do, to me. But in Canada, they're realizing it's not like soldiers have a monopoly on PTSD. Like, it's everyone.
It seems everybody gets it. Now that's what I was going to ask you too. Is there a person that's predisposed to that, or is there?
That's what they're looking at now.
Events that happen that are like, because you and I go through the same events, we're going to react differently to it.
Yeah,
the exact same.
Yeah.
I mean, when they look at studies with twins and stuff, they go, "Oh, these things weren't precursors for this guy, but they were for this guy."
Well, this guy Skip Rizzo, what he's talking about is they're doing, because my part of my interest is how do we use this system to pre-train the guys how to deal with what's going to happen, right? It's crawling through pig guts is one thing, but how do we put him into a situation and train his brain? So they're talking about, training you to recognize what's happening to you,
right?
And then to go along with that, they'll then like use it to treat the next, like how do you put it? He wants to put them out of business on the back end.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so,
if there's a lot right now, we're gonna have less in 10 years because these guys we're gonna mitigate their loss.
Well, they're gonna use it. They'll put guys through a simulator before they ever go to combat, and then when they go through it, they won't know, like they won't have an issue later because they'll know how to deal with it themselves. But to go along with that, the pre-training, they're taking blood samples and they're reading heart rates and they're saying, okay, so this guy, when put under, like you were saying, like, so when Tait went through the simulator, his heart rate barely went up. These chemicals were released by his brain, blah blah blah. when Jodi went through, his heart rate spiked, his brain went into scramble mode, this, that, and the other thing. So what is it about Tait that makes him less excitable? I know in Canada, they did a study of Canadian snipers, and just Canadian snipers, versus the rest of the Canadian combat forces, and they said, and this is one of the, like, I don't have PTSD, right? And I dodged that bullet, even though I had the injuries. And what the study showed is that snipers are less likely to get PTSD. My personal take on it is that I've never met a sniper that said sand nigger or stupid packy or like never used a racial slur, never hated the enemy. Like, I don't hate the Taliban, right? Like, I don't like them. I wouldn't like
not having dinner.
Yeah, we wouldn't have dinner. I might have a coffee with the guy who got me to say, what made you think because it was a sneaky spot where you put the bomb, and it was a sneaky device to be on, like it. But I wouldn't like hate him just as a human. Like, as far as he's concerned, he's doing a job,
too,
right?
Yeah.
So I think snipers are of a mindset like the way I describe it to most people, and this is just me being a shade tree psychologist, having read too many books and thinking I know too much. If Dexter's like the worst end of sociopath, we're like a millimeter inside the line of sociopath, and that we separate ourselves from events, even though we're in them, that to the point where, seeing friends die and putting them in body bags, and then being shot at and seeing children hurt, all things that I did, I'm like, well, that's the job. And hey, man, like, sucks that Rick got it, but that's what he's, that's what we're here to do. Whereas some guys will see that and it's the personal, and they hate the world, and they believe it's their fault,
and it's going to happen
things
at any
like
moment to them, or the other shoe's going to drop,
or like, oh, it's his fault that guy got. It's my fault that guy got zapped, or I should have done this differently, or just whatever makes them believe this, or like as if that guy would shoot my friend. I hate them all now. Yeah. Whereas, like I said, snipers, we. Even America, like...
Now, do you think you're...
This is delicious coffee, by the way.
Thank
dude.
You. Right on.
Thank you for bringing me this.
Of course.
Real caveman coffee.
I'll bring you more tomorrow. Do you think that there's a disconnection that happens as a kid? Like, because I got called all kinds of things when I was a kid also of that nature. Like they said, you're sociopathic, you're schizotypical, you're like a whole bunch of different batteries of tests when I was not even to adolescent yet. 9 years old to 13.
Who are you hanging out with?
I know, right? So,
Jesus.
But I'm wondering, like, when I hear about psychological testing of snipers in particular, that there's a disassociative quality that y'all have to have. Like, there's the target, I got to shoot through the baby kind of thinking. Like, I have a job to do. I've got to get the job done.
I would never shoot through a baby.
But that type of thing. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, is there that testing in Canada as well?
Oh, well, snipers in Canada you have to pass a psychological evaluation just to get on the course. When I became a sniper, that wasn't required, but it was a different type of testing because you were voted on. All the snipers that were going to train you had to say, do we want this guy to be a sniper? And like, I think back to my time, there were guys that we probably could have shot, but we didn't. At the time, it was like anyone who looks like a fighting-aged male and is like...
Yeah, green light.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the rules in Vietnam, and they, any Vietnamese male seen running is probably an enemy, so shoot him. And you think about that these days, and you go, that's like insane.
Right.
But it was kind of the same.
There's no joggers in Vietnam.
What's that?
No jogging in Vietnam.
Well, yeah, like...
Nobody's a good long distance.
They had a rule in Iraq after, like, anyone seen with a shovel.
Huh.
Well, he could be a farmer. He could not be, but you don't shoot him. Go arrest him.
Right.
Find out if he's a farmer or something. But it's, the mindsets are different. But
the different countries have different rules and protocols going in. I mean, there's a big thing like that here.
Well, Afghanistan was a NATO thing. So, like, when we got there, we were under American command. And then... right under that was a Canadian general as well. So we kind of, there's multiple levels, but it was, in 2006 anyway, it was all out war. Like, it was like, anyone in front of this line is
they're a bad
fucking bad guy. Let's kill him. And we did. But this is what I mean. Like, there was a point where we were doing a Overwatch on a trail. 3 guys walked by, and you know, it was me and my partner, and then you know there was a third guy, the sniper of the team, the junior guy, and all 3 of us are looking at him, and we're like, and we were still kind of new at it, like you know, weren't as
like how long were you in country at that time?
At this point, probably like less than 2 months.
Uh-huh.
But you know, and
this was the first situation you came up on.
Well, what happened was we were in a spot, and these guys were walking by, and they weren't armed, and that was one of our things. If they were armed, it was green light, and then otherwise you had to call it in.
Right.
And we're watching them as 2 young guys carrying heavy bags, and an older guy who was obviously in charge. and I'm like, I'm watching.
To me, that sounds definitive. Those guys are all dead.
But this is the thing: a rookie cop might look at a dealer and be like, "I'm not sure."
Yeah.
Whereas a guy with a little bit of experience would be like, go pat him down, I bet you find weed on that guy or something, right? Yeah. That's how I feel we were. We were the rookie cops, but the guys 3 months later or 6 months later would have just been like, yeah, zap him.
Right.
Whereas this time we're like, yeah. So we're like, okay, they're walking this way. If somebody could pick them up.
How far are you away?
Oh, we were less than 100 meters. We could have. I could have shot him with my pistol.
So they're almost hearing you talk on the radio.
Well, we were in a building. We could have been fine, but the closest I came to that was we were in a compound, and they use really thin metal doors there, like on most of the compounds. They have these gates. So we're in there, and we just happened to pick the one that's empty out of like this cluster of compounds. And my boss and I, there were 6 of us that day. We decided to amalgamate the 2 teams and just be like a roving sniper killer team. And so we're inside this compound. A bunch of the guys are up doing, where we're looking around for the bad guys, and there's these 2 kids that are, and the Taliban like to use teenagers as lookouts and stuff, and these guys are scouts because our forces, like our tanks and our infantry, are moving up, like they're a couple clicks away, moving towards us. So we're doing a bound in front of them to keep an eye out for what could be coming their way.
Yeah. And
these guys are looking, and then they're looking around for a spot to look. So they see that they're trying to. So they decide to try to come in. And so the door was pretty flimsy. So I'm like on one side of the door holding it, and I got my pistol up like this, and I'm looking through a crack in the door at the kid, and I'm like, "Don't open the door! Don't open the door!" And he like puts his hand on it. And his friend's yelling at him, and it was just like a movie, man. I was like, I'm almost pissing myself. I'm starting to giggle. I'm starting to get the giggles.
Are you going, buh, 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 buh?
Oh, yeah, because I'm thinking, am I going to shoot this guy in the face or grab him and just pull him in? And my boss is leaning on the door frame with his rifle, and he's kind of, it's not really pointed up. It's in the right direction, and he's looking at me, and he's laughing. And because I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? And he's just laughing. I'm like, looking at him like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And the kid is like, because the way they're yelling at each other, it's like a movie. Like, it's almost like, in every movie where someone's hiding and the bad guy grabs the cupboard door.
But you always think, there's no way he wouldn't have opened the door in the movie. You're like,
exactly,
you know
right?
What I mean? Yeah.
And they walk away because the other friend basically is probably going, what are you doing? Don't go in there. We got other shit we got to do. Right. And the other guy's like, come on, I'm just going to take a look. And he's like, no, come this way. He's like, fine. And he walks off, and I'm sitting there holding the door, and my boss, after they walk away, we both fall on the ground laughing, and we're like, holy shit, what would we have done? Yeah. Because we could have grabbed the one guy, but the other guy's gone. What do you do, shoot him?
Yeah.
Like.
You have to, I guess.
I don't know, man. Like, we had a lot of talks, and we're like, if you read, like.
Now, 6 months later.
Yeah.
You're in that same situation when you look back at it.
This was right before I got wounded. If we had to, we would have slaughtered him if we had to, but a big part of us is this is what I mean, like snipers, we're not, like we don't make rash decisions if we can avoid it. So you look at the situation, we talked a little bit earlier, a couple weeks ago, about maybe going to see the Lone Survivor movie, right? Yeah. I've read the story, we as snipers, we were like, oh my God, a sniper team compromised and one guy survives. They made a decision, right? They're not going to shoot a kid.
Right.
Just to say. And then same in Iraq, the first Gulf War, if you read the books, there was a Green Beret team. They spent all night building this hide and stuff. And what happens, a couple of herder kids find them. And you read it, they're like protocol says they could. What, they're going to shoot a 10-year-old kid? No, they let them go and they run away. Same with Bravo 20, right? Like, nobody's shooting kids, no matter what. And even if they're a teenager that maybe could one day...
Is that really true? Because you hear so many stories about that.
Well, I'm talking about Special Forces snipers as well. And every military is going to have their wackos that are just happy to shoot somebody.
Yep.
And, you know, and a lot of times, too, what happens is the Taliban will use kids or people with mental problems. And they'll put, like, this happened to us early in the tour, like, it not us, but some of our guys. So they stopped on the road and they set up a perimeter. You know, they were checking. I don't know what they were doing, but so the Taliban took this guy who was not all there and they put some wires through his vest. And they wired up his, like, instead of buttons, they had these wires sticking out, obvious.
Yep.
And our thing is, like, if you get too close, suicide bomber, you bang, bang. So they send this guy, and they go, you know, go say hi to the Canadians.
And they're trying to lure you out.
Two things. They're trying to get, if you shoot him, that's an incident. You shot an unarmed guy with no bomb. Two, they're seeing how close they can get before you shoot. So they go, oh, he got within 25 meters before the Canadians shot him, so we got to build a bomb that can go 50 meters.
Now,
And, you know, but we look like the assholes because we shot an innocent person.
But with that, do those incidents really go reported? I mean, if I shoot a guy with wires all over him, is anybody going to say anything to me about that?
No.
Like,
I mean, you're going to get...
I mean?
Yeah, but imagine how guilty you'd feel.
Yeah.
And that's a bunch of guys had that because same thing with motorcycles. And there was a guy, he ran a roadblock because they don't, you know, they're just like, leave me alone. Let me live my life.
Yeah.
The cops are like just kind of there as a suggestion. So when they see a roadblock and they're on a motorcycle, they're like, oh, I can fit through there. Like, they don't even think, even though there's all these stories about this happening. So the guy goes through. So the sentry does his job, comes up, double taps him, and you know, full metal jacket ammo, close range, so it zips right through him and kills him and his son that was behind him on the motorcycle. But that's the protocol, right? Like, you can't, at those situations, you can't take that risk, and also, you know, you zoom in on what's right in front of you as well. Yep. So, but like, you know, like I said, in all my situations, just me personally, we decided we weren't going to do anything rash.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd imagine as a sniper, you have a much more regimented mindset too than a chaotic firefight. You know what I mean? You guys are taught to be like ding, ding, ding before this happens.
Yeah. Well, it's for me. In combat, the world would slow down, and this happened to me. Like, I race motorcycles and I race cars, and even if I'm driving on the highway and someone cuts me off, it's the same thing. Like, and my peripheral goes from, like, you know, here, like almost 80 to whatever, and it goes like it's almost 360. It goes wider.
Really?
Yeah. But that's me. And so, you know, when we were and as snipers, we worked a lot with the Green Berets, American Green Berets, and every engagement I was in with them, I would be shooting my rifle, and my sniper would be shooting a sniper rifle. And we had both, like, straight up close and then far away. And I found, unless I had a target,
I would.
Your
rifle?
Well, just like one of these, an M4, our version of the M4.
Yeah.
But the difference I saw between how I shot and how even a Green Beret shot was speculative fire. I would call it. Like, we knew the enemy was around us, so like they were doing like shooting. They were like, you know, bop, 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 bop.
Right.
And I'm like kind of following their lead at first. So I shoot a few times. I'm like, okay, wait, we don't have targets, so we're kind of wasting ammo.
Right.
And then so after that,
I'm giving away my position.
Just wasting ammo. Like, you know, like, so unless you have a definite target, I didn't really shoot that much. You know, and then the difference is that effective fire is way more. Like, if it's on target, that's way more effective than shit spraying everywhere.
Right.
But part of the drill to a gunfight is you got to win the gunfight, and part of that is putting down as much lead as you can, right? But that's just it's just a different, like these guys all had lots of ammo and machine guns. Like as snipers, we travel kind of light.
Yep.
I only had like 300 rounds on me and stuff, so you want to conserve that as much as you can. My sniper was awesome in that particular one. You know, I was busy shooting at a guy like 75 meters away that kept jumping out with a machine gun, and jumping behind it like a anthill or something, and then he's looking out beyond that guy, and he sees two guys, and he takes them out all on his own without even a spot or anything.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I was pretty proud of him. He got a commendation for it and stuff.
God damn. And how far away are those guys?
He didn't he had his. Usually, you put your scope at say 400, and depending on how far away the guy is, you aim high or
Make
low.
your adjustments, yeah.
Without changing your scope. So we had that set up, and then he figures the one guy was 400, and the other guy was 500 or something. The furthest guy we got was 1650.
Holy fuck.
And that's whatever with the rifles we have nowadays.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's still it's not like it's an automatic. It's like there's a lot of operator error that can come into play at a mile.
Oh yeah, a millimeter at 1,000 meters is a meter. So if my guy had flinched a millimeter off his target, he would have missed by a meter or 160 centimeters.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I was super proud of that.
So
guy.
there's you. Your job is
I was
taking
the team
care
lead.
of the surrounding area.
Yeah, so I had the radio because I'm the most senior guy in the team. So I have the radio. I have my rifle, my ammo. I have a few extra grenades for stuff because my job is to watch the back of the sniper team. So then my guy, there's only 3 of us, so really there's no second in command. But my second in command, he's my spotter.
Right.
And then he coaches the sniper onto the target.
Now, how close are you guys when you're walking somewhere? Are you in a tight group?
Minimum 10 meters.
Okay.
So
and then when you set up, how close are you? Are you back further to make sure that there's nobody coming up on you? Or?
Yeah, so they'll because when you're in your position, especially the two of you, your focus is what's in front of you. So then with the third guy, and sometimes we'll be in teams of 4, teams of 6, like I said. So then my job is to turn my back to them, and my job is everything behind them and even to their sides, because somebody could come up the side or whatever. And so, and that, or if they spot something, I call in the artillery or I call in an aircraft, and because a lot of the time the enemy would be too far away to shoot, so we just call in artillery.
And now, did they know where you were going when they planted the bomb? Did they know who they were targeting, or?
The guys who did the post-incident investigation, they figured it was a legacy device that was left there months and months ago. And the guy put it in a spot because he had to be experienced because he put it in a spot because all 3 guys went through the spot I went through before me and didn't hit it. Right. So when I went through and hit it, I just stepped slightly left or right or whatever. Or I was the biggest guy, and I had a 30-pound radio on.
Right.
Because it was pretty deep as well, they said. So maybe they did step on it, just not enough pressure.
Yeah.
So he thought somebody would be there. Because I met a Marine in San Antonio a few years later, or maybe a year later. I forget. I've been to San Antonio a few times. That's where there's a major rehab center for the American forces. And he had the exact same injury, except his left leg hadn't been shredded as bad. And it was the same as an anti-personnel landmine on top of a mortar bomb. But it was one city over. So we figure it was the same guy.
Same guy laying it.
Or the same legacy of teachers. And, it's a pretty smart device. They always put it near a door or an opening. And the mine takes your foot, so you're taken out. And then the mortar bomb, because mortars are designed, they're like big grenades. They blow out, and mines blow up. Okay. Right? So the explosion is supposed to go straight up, take your foot, and wound you. That's what it's for. And then a mortar bomb, like I said, is like a grenade. So that explosion, instead of going straight up, it kind of goes like an arc. And if the guy in front of me had stepped on it,
boom.
Well, no, they're both instantaneous.
Okay.
But if the guy in front of me had stepped on it, it would have taken my head off.
Right. If you're walking in tandem with somebody or near somebody.
Well, no, if I was behind him. And the device was designed to go back through the doorway we had come through. And so if the first guy had stepped on it, he could have been laying there with no legs and 3 dead guys behind him.
Yep.
We don't know.
Yep.
But whoever the guy was that planted them, he definitely was a smart guy. That's what I mean. I say I'd have a coffee with him just to be what made you think to put one there?
Yeah. And how many have you done?
Sorry.
How many has he done? How many?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, I mean, the devices he's using are plentiful and simple. So he could have done hundreds, really, or he could have, and whoever showed him.
Now, what do you think about that? About you don't think about it as a soldier, about reasons that you're on the ground, about a purpose like that. Your purpose is so definitive of getting bad guys that it's not like the geopolitical idea, right?
I'll tell you, I do think about it, but I don't think about it in a "why are you doing this to me" way.
No, but like, why are we here?
No, I know what you mean. I think about it, but I don't think about it like Canada's reasons for going to Afghanistan were like, we didn't want to go to Iraq, but we wanted to stay friendly with the U.S.
Right.
In basic terms.
Right.
And
do you think about it differently now than you did then?
No, because
Same way.
I was always politically aware, but to me, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm a volunteer. If we were drafted, it's different. Right. Like, the Russians were drafted, so when they were there, every guy that got zapped, it was like, fuck, man, he didn't even want to be here.
Right.
We were fighting each other for a position on the tour. Yeah. Like, guys didn't want to be left behind because we all knew it was going to be, like, this is the big game, especially for the Canadian Army, where we hadn't been in a gunfight since Korea, really, like a real official sanctioned gunfight. So when time came up, and there's only so many spots, so guys are, like, doing their best to make sure they're one of them. So, like, for me, I looked at, like, king and queen and duty and honor and all that, for sure. But when I joined the military, it was for adventure. Like, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So if my government said, we want you to go there and fight these guys, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then if somebody, we're only here for oil, I'm like, yeah.
Or whatever. Or opium. Or what? Who cares?
But doesn't matter to me. My job is to kill the Taliban.
Yeah.
Regardless. Doesn't matter. And, like, I think about politics, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of sucks. And in Canada, the Veterans Affairs system is a little wonky right now. And I'm just like, we all knew that going in, And it's, it doesn't mean I accept the way things are, the way things are done, but I went into it willingly, like open arms.
Eyes wide open.
Eyes wide open. Yeah. That was me, too. Like, I can only talk for myself.
I mean, but everybody had as much information as you have. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. And so, to me...
It's not like they're like, dude, you're going to get $1 million after you get out of it.
Yeah. There was no, like...
Yeah, it's the Army, and it's a not minimum wage, and you'll have insurance.
Yeah,
whatever.
And we'll feed you, but every now and then you're going to be in danger. And that's why most guys, like, you can join the Army and be a truck driver. Well, actually, in Afghanistan, that's one of the most dangerous jobs, but
I bet.
You could be like a clerk, and you sit behind a desk all day sending emails and doing out pay stubs.
Yep.
And get paid exactly what I got paid at the same rank.
You'd probably die of boredom, though.
I don't know. They seem to be okay with it, but I'm just saying, like, when you join a unit like an infantry unit, getting shot at shouldn't be a surprise.
Right. Right.
And so when it comes down to the politics,
what'd your folks think?
Well, I joined at 17, so they were.
Was your family military at all, or no?
No, just my mom's younger brother was my uncle. He was like in the same unit I was in when he was a kid, and then he went Air Force. And it wasn't even until after I joined the unit that I knew he had been in it as a kid. My grandfather was he was a Serbian border guard, quickly captured in World War II, and then, but like it wasn't like he was a career for him.
Right,
it was
right.
War is coming, go guard the border.
Right.
And then, but that's a funny story too, because after he was captured, he was sent to my grandma's village as like slave labor. And he ended up becoming like the underground mayor of the town.
God damn!
And he left as even my uncle, my dad's older brother, was born during the war, with like one of the local hot chicks, my grandma, right? Like so, and then as soon as the British liberated them, they were like, "See you later, suckers!" And he like took off with the British.
Rad.
Oh yeah, and then the British were like, "You can move anywhere in the Commonwealth, but Britain." So they moved to Canada.
Sick.
Oh, yeah, like, imagine that. Like, you're sent to a village as a slave, and the village is like, yo, man, you want to run shit?
You did win the lottery.
Oh, yeah. Well, the British showed up, and they're like, hey, you speak Ukrainian? And my grandpa's like, yes. He didn't speak Ukrainian at all, man. Right. They're like, you speak Polish?
He's like, I'm valuable.
He's like, do I speak Polish? Like, get in the Jeep, you're a translator. Rock and roll, fellas, let's
Rad.
Go. He bullshitted his way into the job, but it worked.
It's awesome. So, are you live in the same town as your folks and everything?
No, well, Dad lives in, and Dad and Mom, they're split up, but they live in the Greater Toronto area, and I live in Ottawa, our great nation's capital.
Yep.
And after I was wounded, the military sent me there to be kind of like more or less a poster boy of the wounded, and that was in 2009. And then that's like I ran that half marathon.
Do they pay you continually?
Oh yeah, I'm getting paid right now.
Right.
My last day is in April coming up, and what's really good is that they have I was a little upset for a little while because I got wounded in combat, and this is one policy I wasn't that aware of. But regardless of how you got hurt, if you lose your leg in a car accident or chopping down trees or in combat, the military considers you equally as useless, right?
Right.
In Canada. And so, all promotions stop, and then they start working on when they're going to get rid of you, basically. Basically, they stop spending money on you.
Right.
Except for your pay. And we've gotten that policy changed a little bit. Like, I've been in the military beyond the time when they used to get rid of you. And I haven't been promoted or anything, but anyway, when I found all this out, I was like, what do you mean I can't become a sergeant? I was fucking wounded in combat. They're like, well, the policies. But, so I'd made a decision after a while to finally leave. But the system to get out is really good in that they give you time to find a new career, try it out, and if you like it, they'll pay for you to train yourself. Now, they won't pay for a PhD or anything.
Right.
But, so say they're like, well, I want to try real estate. So instead of being like, okay, send you to real estate school, and then you get to real estate school and you're like, this sucks. But they've already paid for 3 years or however long it is. I don't know. You can go and shadow a real estate agent for 6 months, and they'll pay you for 6 months while you do this. And then at the end, they go, so what do you think? And you're like, yeah, it's awesome. Okay, here's your real estate course, paid for, go ahead. Or if you're a mechanic and you want to try being a heavy diesel mechanic in the civilian world, you can go and shadow, they'll put you in a job placement at a heavy diesel mechanic shop.
Or learn business, how to run business.
Business is a big one because military guys are good at, the office environment and shit like that. So they'll pay for you to take office management and stuff like that. Everything I wanted to do was not really in the binder, because they want you to set you up for a job, like a known profession, right? And typical military guys don't go into the media.
But the guy that goes out that goes, I want excitement. That's not a job.
Yeah, they're like, excitement isn't really on the list of employment. Yeah. But
like high adrenaline.
The Bank of Montreal is there.
Right.
And you could be a financial consultant.
Where's race car driver?
Yeah. No. So everything I start part of being poster boy is media.
Yeah.
So I was doing all this media, and I think that's how I dodged the PTSD bullet as well. As I talked about what happened to me pretty early, and I was like, this is a lot of fun.
How do you feel like your makeup was different? Like, you know what I mean? Seriously, like you're of a different sort. That
I
isn't
think you meant like makeup.
No,
like
but that's
combat makeup versus
that's not
TV makeup.
Like susceptible to that.
Yeah, I did a lot of drama in high school. I did improv, comedy plays and stuff. But when you join the military, it's you're not supposed to stand out, right? You stand out through your actions, and people go, "Good job," and then they'll promote you or whatever. As a sniper, it's even more. You avoid Canadian Forces snipers aren't even allowed to have their picture posted if they're operational, and stuff. So it was a weird transition in that I went from avoiding all media contact to, once I was in a position to be a mentor to other injured and ill and stuff, to kind of seeking it out and having the military place me.
Right.
Whereas before they were like, don't ever stand in front of a media camera.
Yep.
To Jodi, show up at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation for an interview.
They want to keep you on too. You know what I mean?
But there's a certain point where the system doesn't want you to shine too much.
Yeah, but
even keeping me on, I'm just I'm a master corporal, which is in the American military is the same as like a middle sergeant, and I didn't hear this from this guy's lips, but this was a mood I was told about and felt amongst a lot of company was, I don't give a fuck where he's been or what he's done. He's just a master corporal.
Right.
And so there's only so long you want to be a mid-level guy.
Right.
With, what, if I stick around for 25 years as that guy.
Right.
And never get a pay raise. I got 2 kids to feed.
Yeah.
And I got a house to pay for. And this...
I would think you could start your own section of fucking rehabilitation for the whole armed services in Canada, though, too.
Maybe. Like I started my own charity called the Never Quit Foundation. It's slowly building up steam. And the idea is to take injured and ill and take them to... Like, we went to the UFC in Toronto.
With, like, Tim Kennedy and, Brian Stan, that like they're all in that, man.
Yeah.
Like the Wounded Warriors Project and all that.
Well, Stan, he has his Hire a Hero, right? So where they hire ex-service members. In Canada, we have something similar. There's all kinds of organizations everywhere. I started one for me and the guys in my sphere of influence. And the idea is that instead of sitting around in like a dark room smoking cigarettes and drinking, coffee, and telling each other stories, and now not only are you upset about what happened to you, now you're upset about what happened to me. We go to like a UFC, and we have a party. We hang out, meet some of the fighters.
Yep.
And now, if you lose your legs in combat, and even if you lose a leg, you feel like you're the only person in the world. And now you're in a group of people. Like we did one at the UFC in Toronto. I think it was the first. Yeah, it was the first UFC in Toronto where they. Have you ever been to Toronto?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Sky Dome thing.
Yep.
So they sold that out, right? And so, me and a buddy of mine, we put like $10,000 on each of our credit cards. We bought a bunch of tickets, bought some planes. So we brought in 10 other injured soldiers and a kid that had lost his feet to bacterial infection, and we brought them to Toronto. And we set it up. And the way I look at it is I'm setting it up so that they can have peer support and also mentor each other. Because some of the guys have more experience with it than others. And so I tell this story to everyone, but so we set it up and I said, hey guys, all show up in the lobby bar in shorts, and then we're going to go to the UFC Fan Expo. And we're going to walk around, and we'll hang out at some of the spots and meet some fighters. And so we show up and we're all having a drink. And one of the youngest privates that had been wounded recently shows up, and he's missing one of his feet, and he's got a prosthetic. And so he comes in, he sits down. I look over, and I notice he's in jeans, and I'm like, okay, I'll pull him aside, and I'll say, hey, man, remember I said to wear shorts? And he jumps up and runs off. And I'm like, oh, And his girlfriend's, like, starting to tear up.
Yeah. And
I'm like, oh, fuck. So I go over, and I'm like, what's the matter? She's like, he's going to put on shorts. And I'm like, okay, good. Yeah, that's what I told him to wear. She's like, no, you don't get... He hasn't worn shorts since he had his foot blown off. And I was like, yes, we did it. We made him feel weird that he wasn't wearing shorts.
Yeah.
And I'm rocking my prosthetics, and, we got another guy whose legs are gone to here, and he's got shorts on in his wheelchair. And,
damn it, Jodi.
And then we got this young 14-year-old kid and his mom there seeing all this. And that kid now, he's 16. He's trying out for a Paralympic sledge hockey team, and he's only 16. And because he got to see all these guys that were dealing with what happened to them, set an example for him. And now he's helping he's a champion at his children's hospital where he went. Now he's mentoring the little kids that are going through the same thing he went through. So that's what we're trying to do, is just set it up.
So there's a whole thing of if this injury happens to me where I go through a thing where I want to hide it from the world and not be different.
Dude, I went through a period, it was short, luckily, where I'd be in my, because I didn't get legs, like I said, for a couple months, right? So I would be laying in my hospital bed, bandages off, and basically stumps. And I don't know why, but I went through a good while where if I was just laying there, I'd always pull the sheet up to my knee. You could tell there's no foot there, but I just didn't want people seeing the scar. I don't know why. There's someone even wrote an article about it, and I mentioned it, and I'm like, I don't know why. I just got over this feeling, and it's in the article. It's like, Jodi doesn't know why he's over it, but he finally is. But I remember people would come in the room, and I'd just pull the sheet up. And they know why I'm in the hospital, and I know why.
And
but
if it's just you in the room, you're not.
Oh, it's just me, or maybe my
You're trying to not make anybody else feel uncomfortable.
I want people to feel comfortable as themselves.
Yeah.
And look, part of you now is carbon fiber parts. Or lack of something, missing an arm or whatever. if you're not comfortable with yourself, because people, like, I'll crack jokes. You know, like, we were down on Venice Boardwalk, or whatever you guys call it.
Yeah.
We're down on Venice Beach today, and there's a big sign that says toe rings. So I'm with this guy, Patrick, and I'm like, hey, man, I should go get a toe ring before we go home. He's like, oh, yeah. Pause, 2, 3, and he's like, aw, man, you got me. And I'm like, yeah, you know, because if you can't have a sense of humor about it, it's like, and that's the same for everything, right?
Yeah.
If you can't have a sense of humor or be comfortable with talking about it, nobody else is going to be.
Right.
And it's always going to be that elephant in the room, right? And so if I can get a guy to go upstairs and put shorts on who's never shown off his leg in public before, to feel that, and I'm not saying I did it, but if we can set up a situation where that's normal,
was okay.
And even I have days too, to this day, where, like, I'm in jeans right now because just walking down the street, and I don't mind it, but I'll get people be like, yo, holy shit, like, what happened? Like, I was at Home Depot the other day in shorts. I was right after the gym. I was going in to grab something, and these 2 guys pull up in a pickup truck. Hey, man, what the fuck happened to your legs? It's like, part of me is like, really?
Yeah.
That's like stopping a hot chick and being like, yo,
How'd you
nice
get so
tits.
hot? Yeah.
and I'm just like, but I'm like, at the same time, it's odd to see a guy walking around on 2 prosthetics.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I stepped on a mine in Afghanistan. Whoa, really? Holy shit. And you can see in their eyes, like, it happens every time. They're like, last thing they expected to hear.
What's so fucking crazy here, too, is that for you to answer like that, like, we don't see that.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
we don't have that on the news.
For me to be upset about it is like, I'm the asshole.
No, not really. I mean, I get what you're saying, but, like, we're so muted from the reality of what war is that it has to look palatable to Americans, or else we're not going to keep selling it. And so, you know what I mean? It's like we don't see any fucking coffins on the news, man. We don't see anybody with body. We don't see that.
Well, in Canada, it was different. We have this thing called the Highway of Heroes.
Yeah.
We had like 158 killed in Afghanistan, and that doesn't sound like a lot compared to the thousands you guys have. But our combat arms is smaller than the Navy SEALs, right? So every time bodies would come home, there'd be a parade down this highway, and people would line the highway
it's like
and the
in
bridges.
England too. There's a town that all the coffins go to, right, where they process them
so
through.
it's the same. It's this highway, and it goes from this air base into Toronto to the coroner's office where all the bodies go for examination. And every overpass would be lined with people waving. And every time, you know, like, even me, like, I can see it nowadays, and I get, like, the hairs, and, like, you feel proud too, right? Because that's the people showing their respect. And I think here the difference is that, you know, there's a certain amount of privacy that families want.
Sure.
And there's also a certain, what's a word, macabre. You like to use big words. So
yeah, macabre.
The macabre feeling. And, you know, I see the point of the military and the government's position as well. You know, but I don't know, like, it's a different scenario too, right?
It's the kind of thing, though. It is what it is. And to not speak of it, it's like hiding your prosthetics in a way.
Yeah.
It's like when we're hiding what really happens here, we're it's almost like we're disavowing that it happens. It's almost as if
I don't know about that.
There's not an honoring of what's going on. Like this is what the sacrifice looks like.
Maybe not. Like, you can look at it from the position of the military and the government and the family. That's their business. If you want to be involved, it's not hard to find out that bodies are, you know, injured, like dead soldiers are coming home. If you really want to know, part of it is that not. And when I say there, it's not a parade down the Highway of Heroes in Canada. It's that it's obvious what's going on, like when there's bodies coming home. So people find out and they go out on their own accord, right, and they wait for those bodies to pass by and to salute or wave the flag. So, but what happened even in Canada is they limited press on the runways and stuff because families were, you know, the last thing you want is a camera in your face. Like a good friend of mine was killed, and him and his girlfriend had a 1-year-old, or had a newborn kid, almost the same age as my first daughter, and you know, my wife went down with them to receive the body and stuff, and the last thing you want is a camera in the face of a widow,
right,
or a mother and
right.
stuff, and the guys all get funerals, military funerals, especially in America. You guys are really hardcore about the military's hardcore. The firing squad shows up, or it's not firing squad. The parade salute shows up. They do the 21 gun salute. They fold the flag up like super, precise, and that's presented to the family because that's a moment between the family and the deceased and the military. And if the public wants to be involved, there's ways that are respectful, but also, this isn't. We're not talking World War here.
Right.
And you guys managed to go through 2 major wars, and the worst thing that happened is your gas prices at the pump spiked. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that, from my perspective that I can see. So if your life wasn't disturbed, why should theirs be disturbed by the media and stuff? And I know I'm going to get in shit for saying that.
That's a whole other way to view it. I never looked at it that way.
But it's, for me, like, every soldier's death isn't a parade.
Right.
But that's my perspective.
Now, what
having
do you think
been a soldier
about this right now? Like that, there's more. And do you have the same numbers in Canada for that? There's more guys that kill themselves when they get back here than fucking are killed in combat.
Yeah, that's
like,
what's
that
a rough
about?
one. Well, I can't speak on it.
And do you have that in Canada? Is that?
I've only known one of my good buddies killed himself after being injured.
They say one a day
here
that gets back here.
Your guys' military is massive compared to ours.
True.
Like even per capita, like our entire forces is like just over 60,000 people. That's like a base to you guys.
Right.
And you guys have dozens of bases, right? I know a few guys that killed themselves before and after combat. But tracking, and this is a bit of an issue in Canada, is that they don't track those numbers.
Huh.
Like they don't know. Like,
right.
Like people in uniform that kill themselves are easy.
Right.
But they don't, it's not like they say guys in uniform that killed themselves that have been to Afghanistan in one line.
Right.
And guys that haven't in the other.
Right.
They have, the numbers of guys that kill themselves. And girls, too. I mean, we're an integrated force. As far as former members, they don't even track that.
Right.
It's just something that they never did before.
Was that a striking thing when you heard those numbers in America? Like,
when I consider the scale of your military, not really.
Yeah.
Like one a day when you consider it's millions and millions of people. Like if you took a typical population of the same, and add up how many of them kill themselves a day,
right?
It might be comparable.
Huh.
I don't know. I'd have to see the numbers side by side. Like, what's the population of Los Angeles?
17 million, I think, or 16 million, like with all the outlying communities, I believe.
I don't know, but I'll guess that your military is probably, like, I don't know. It's a couple million anyway, for sure. I think the Marine Corps alone is 2 million.
Wow.
Plus Navy, plus Air Force, plus Army. You're probably looking at 10 million people. I don't know. We could Google it right now if we wanted. But if you added up any population of a similar number and then added up how many suicides there are a day, it's probably close to the same. I don't know, man. I could be talking total shit, too.
We'll look it up
tonight.
We'll
have to Google that later.
We'll look it up tonight and we'll get back.
So listen.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about you.
Okay, what you need to know?
Well, I've heard some hints dropped about your past.
Uh-huh.
First of all, you were tearing up here when I was talking about my kids and my past, so you're not a sociopath.
Okay.
Obviously, that's pretty obvious. You care about people, just like I do.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing, though, like what cracks us open, too,
Dude, I cry at little kid movies.
More and more recently that I'm more in tune with other people than I'd ever been in my life before.
Yeah, and that's what I find.
I do feel like there's been, I don't know. I was like disassociated with people for a long time, and
was that from your upbringing?
I don't know what it was from. There's a few events that happen, and I think that you it's like when I said that twins will go through stuff, and like one thing affects somebody one way and one thing affects somebody another way, and they're completely opposite, and they're the same genetic makeup and the same circumstance and everything, what it means. It's what we attribute meaning to, I guess,
Yeah.
And so I think everybody copes with things in a different way.
Yeah.
So
I've read probably up the part where your story starts for me is where you show up at Jackson's gym in Albuquerque.
Okay.
Because that's the obvious, easy stuff to get out.
Yeah.
Before that, you're from
Michigan.
Michigan.
Where people make fun of the way I say out.
Oh, yeah?
And they go, are you fucking Canadian or what? Even people.
What's wrong with how you say out? Sounds just the way I say out. You
don't say. I never noticed it until other people start talking about it.
You don't say A, do you?
No.
No. If you're from Michigan, you're almost Canadian. Really.
No, basically.
But I thought I heard stories from you talking about you were on the streets for a while.
Well, I had a colorful history, I guess. You know, I'd sold dope since I was 12. I worked I came from a nice family, and I took a left turn for a lot of years. I ended up at the end of that in a federal detention center in Colorado.
Federal?
After a bank robbery.
So not even state. You went fed.
Well, yeah, you walk into a bank with a gun, and the FBI takes notice, and the U.S. Marshals and all that. And so that was when I was a young man of, I don't know, I was 22, 23.
How long did you stay in jail for?
I was there about a month, and until we went to court and sorted it out. I wasn't in the bank that was robbed, and I was down the road, and but it was my gun and it was my car, and that my buddy had, and so there was all that. He copped to everything and left me out of the whole deal, and he ended up doing 9 years.
So you've really become reborn since those days.
In a huge way, I'm a different. Yeah.
How old are you now?
I'm a different person than I was. 42.
You're 42, so you're 5 years older than me. And when was the moment that you decided Tait Fletcher needs to become?
I guess when I was driving back when I got released from Inglewood, there was a turn that. I was just in tears, man, and I thought, and it was like one of the things that I'd always figured that my mom was going to see me in through glass, you know, and then she did, and
mom,
and I thought, man, you know, this is
what mom thinks is a hard motivator.
It's fucking tough, you know.
Yeah.
And I got to be different. And I didn't know what I was going into. I just knew what I couldn't have anymore, and I'm like, I can't live like this anymore.
It's too hard.
I got to be something different, you know, because this ends like this, you know. And I was just locked up. It was just the place had just rioted. There's a bunch of dudes that had just come in with me that were in intake that had just killed a bunch of DEA agents in Colorado Springs, and so we're all in the marshal's office together. You know, there's this old biker dude that had just violated, and he'd violated his parole because he got, I don't even know who the guy was, but he didn't go and sign in for his parole. He was supposed to see his parole officer every week. He just didn't go, so his parole officer went looking for him. And then he goes out there and he's got a guy tied up, hanging from a string in his barn, and he's skinning him alive. So these are the people that I'm in contact with, and that dude's telling me how he's gonna fuck me later, so
like the typical you're pretty boy.
It's all going on, you know what I mean? I look at him. I go, "You don't want to have to work for it, man." He's like, "Oh, I'm not going to work for it." And I was like, "This is going to be awful."
Yeah.
And so anyway, you know, that's just wallpaper. I mean,
how old was this biker dude?
He was probably 50.
And were you looking at him thinking that could be me at 50?
You look at all of them guys, you know, and you go, "Here's my life if I don't." I remember I was shooting dope with the dude. I was 19 years old.
So you were shooting dope?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was like 19. I was in Lansing, and I'm sitting there, and he's got a little TV in this little shitty apartment, and he's like my age now, and I go, "This is where your life goes if nothing changes, Tait." And it's fine right now. It's not great, but it's like there's one way of behaving when you're fucking a teenager or you're early. That's like if you fast forward 20 years and you go, "Here I am 20 years from now, if I live, if everything goes well," you know? And knowing that for years before I ever had any kind of change. And then, you know, I met a guy when I got back, this guy John Lowe, and it's crazy, you know, I hadn't been able to get a hold of him for a long time. But he was a man that spent every day with me, and he'd pick me up, and he just really helped me. And he mentored me a lot. He was a guy. He was on a chain gang in Alabama.
This is post prison too.
Yeah, this is post.
Yeah,
and so I meet him, and he'd take me in his house, you know, and he'd fucking make popcorn, and his old lady was there, and fucking we'd watch movies, and and he'd talk to me about fucking God and about the universe and about meaning and about being a man and about it was like being in school, man, and about definitive steps. You know, he'd say, 80% of a spiritual life, Tait, is being polite when you don't feel like it. And towing the line regardless of what emotions you're going through, and how he'd say you can act your way into right thinking, but you can't think your way into right action, and shit like that, and things that like I could stand on, like you're not going to think yourself out of it, but if you start walking in the direction, regardless of how you feel, you'll be in a different spot,
Wow.
And I remember sitting on his couch with him, and I go, man, I just want to let you know, John, I recognize I got a debt to you. I owe you. Bring me in your house and fucking, and he goes, you don't owe me anything, Tait. He says, but you owe.
You owe the world, you owe the universe.
Like, you owe the universe, man. And he says,
that's
what
powerful.
What you're gonna do is you're gonna get as well as you can, and you're gonna recover as much as you can, and you're gonna help the guy coming behind you. And he says, and you're gonna do that for the rest of your life. And if you don't do that, you're probably not gonna be okay. And it's the one thing that I think of every day, and go on from there. And so you make your life like of service. So like, where can I be useful? And that whole thing about being self-absorbed and kind of full of your ego in that way is a thing that is it doesn't matter to anybody else, or if anybody else thinks I'm egocentric, but that's cancer to me. You know what I mean? It's like I need to humble myself. I need to be in a position where I'm helpful and I'm useful to people around me that I got nothing to gain for being. I need to be that, and all the other stuff is just trappings. You know what I mean? And it's a thing that serves me well. And then you fast forward through. I'm a fucking, I'm a junkie. I'm an alcoholic, and I fucking.
You considered yourself a full-blown junkie alcoholic at the time?
Yeah, and. Yeah, man, I couldn't not drink in the mornings, or I would shake.
Yeah,
and
I've only ever been addicted to the OxyContin.
Yeah, that's a tough
post-injury.
Deal. Yeah,
and it was getting off. It was the worst 4 days of my life. But I couldn't imagine.
So now think about this: I've kicked 100 times. Imagine getting off, but then you have that craving that it makes sense, and it'll be different this time when I go back on, and that's all the time. For a person that's afflicted, right? And so
I was never sympathetic to addicts until I was one.
Yeah.
And by sympathetic, I don't mean like I hated them. I just thought like, how hard can it be to? Because I quit smoking like that when I was a kid, but I was never really addicted.
Yeah,
and the pain,
deal.
but the pain meds, that's opium, straight up pure opium.
That's the only comfort that you get in this life, and you don't feel anything else, and you're disassociated from everything else. Then that's your lover. That's everything. That's everything.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you decided to, what was there anything between that and Albuquerque? That
when I drove out of Colorado, it was into New Mexico.
Yeah,
yeah. And so
were you just wandering?
I'd gotten there as I'd been hospitalized for my alcoholism. A year and a half before that, something like that, and then I was in a hospital for about 6 months, and
6 months straight.
Yeah, well, I went from like an ICU to a rehabilitation center to like a therapeutic community to like it was a trip, and
it's good, man.
And again, I was the youngest dude there, and there's all these dudes that were chronic recidivism. Running rampant through them, but anyway, I went to a classical literature program. It was like, what are you going to do with your life now, kid? And all these guys kind of pushed me into this thing, and that's what took me to Santa Fe to begin with, and then a subsequent relapse, and the arrest happened after that, and all that, and just because I was like, I was going through I had a bad habit for a while, and I just had to change a couple things, and what I found was that I was just untreated, and that if you go untreated long enough, you'll drink again.
Yeah.
And so I did. I didn't know that.
You don't drink at all, though, now, right?
No.
Like, you can't. You don't want to ever touch it again.
I don't. I've thought about doing other things. I thought about like doing ayahuasca or shit like that. But then,
I want to.
And I think you should. And I would, except for this. The reason I won't is because I'd have to be honest about it. I'd have to tell everybody about it.
Tell everybody.
And the thing is this, is that if I'm looking to be helpful to people that are coming behind me, what I would look at if I was looking at a dude like me, I would go, oh, he did DMT or he did ayahuasca. Or I would be looking for a cheap, easy drug answer. And I don't think there is one. And
like you mean like an easy answer to the addiction?
Uh-huh. And there may be.
But your example is one of long testing,
yeah, it is. It is.
I shouldn't say testing, but your willpower. So you've been clean for
19 years.
So 19 years. Yeah. You've been completely clean.
Completely
I mean,
abstinent.
you're on caveman coffee now, and that's about it. And I can see in the way that you, like, just through your Twitter and that, like, you take, and I've heard you're saying, the one thing you said once on one of the podcasts was, why would I put anything in my body that doesn't help me perform?
Right.
Or something along those lines.
Right.
So you've replaced one addiction, so to speak, with another, and now your addiction now is being the best Tait Fletcher you can be. Yeah. So if you were going to mentor me,
right,
and you explained to me this is the step, you know what? And then I went and did ayahuasca, and if you listen to Graham Hancock and all the guys that have ayahuasca,
there's a lot of good reasons to do it.
A lot of good reasons, and if you feel like that would be something that would help you, I say go for it.
But it's still an unknown. I don't know whether it would, or what if that's the thing that unhinges me then.
But
out of the footing that I have
I've
right
never
now,
heard
which
anyone
is solid.
Coming home and drinking a bottle of vodka after ayahuasca.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you're aware of that, though, too.
I know. And if only awareness was what it took.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's go together. I'll go with you.
If I decide to, I'll go with you.
Yeah. We'll go down to the jungle. We'll sleep in a hammock, and we'll puke on each other. And
so right now, in 30 minutes, I got to be in Studio City because I got to give a talk to a bunch of kids. But let's do a part 2 tomorrow of this.
I'm not doing anything else, man.
Awesome.
We're going to go get dinner after?
Tomorrow?
Yep,
absolutely.
All right, man. Well, this has been an honor for me.
Man, me too, dude.
I can't believe you actually answered my email.
I can't wait to see you tomorrow. All right. And
Much
everybody,
respect,
thank you very much. And you'll get part 2 of this. I'll stagger them a week, I'm sure. And we'll go like that.
The Pirate, what's it called?
Pirate Life.
The new name is the Pirate Life. And this is the first edition under the new name?
That's right.
I'm honored.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Pirate Life, yo.
Talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right. Peace.